What is up, guys? Welcome to the Unfazed Facts podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Gym Leader Challenge. I'm Joshua Benson with my co-host Jeff Baisch, but we have a special guest today. We have Ben Morse of Morse Makes. He is a creator of GLC content. He has a very well-established graphic design business such as playmats and does all sorts of other things in the community, and is just an all in general creative person. Ben, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be on today.
Oh, yes, we are extremely excited. I know that Jeff and I have been talking about this for a little bit and kind of was like, hey, we want to get Ben on, and well, I just sent you a message over and you were like, yeah, let's do this thing. And so a couple things to start off with. We were talking before the podcast, and not only are you a creative person, but so is your wife. I hear she makes all sorts of cool things that she likes to sell over the weekend.
So she actually isn't creating; she's curating. Curating, yeah. So she's a vintage reseller up here in Cleveland, where we live, and she goes to estate sales, thrift stores all over the place, Facebook Marketplace, hunting down deals and stuff. And then, a lot of weekends we're out at flea markets or pop-up events just around the city, and, selling, having a good time, just hanging out and making some money doing it. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's sweet. Hey, curators are creative too. They see something and they got to have the eye for it. It's not an easy thing. I got a couple questions here, and not just like any type of questions. These are going to be fully loaded questions, Ben. All right.
They've been vetted. They are spicy.
They've been vetted. Right now I've got to actually read this question off because I cannot remember it, and it's not going to sound as eloquent when coming out of my mouth. So when listening to you speak or just browsing your socials, you can clearly see that you are a creative person yourself. But what would you say? Would you say that creativity sets you apart in this small niche on YouTube that is the GLC community? And if not, what would you say does set you apart?
Good question. So I don't know. I'm not trying to set myself apart,
Yeah.
I'm trying to give back. And, the Pokemon community, and especially now the GLC community, is just something I'm so proud and so happy to be a part of. And it's just such a good time, such a good outlet for me. It's my way to socialize, to meet people. A couple years back, me and my wife moved across the country from California to Ohio, and I didn't know she was going to school, so she had a built-in community she could meet there. I didn't know anybody. So Pokemon is just a fantastic way to meet people. So I am a pretty creative person. I do have an art degree. As you said before, I'm a graphic designer by trade. So I just like to Baisch showing off the Morse Makes mat. Yeah. So the playmats are, even before videos started, playmats was kind of like the first thing I was doing, because that's like the way to kind of show yourself to people when you start playing Pokemon. It's like, okay, we're all playing Pokemon cards. The one thing that is going to set me apart when I show up here is the playmat I show up with, right? So it's got to be a conversation starter, maybe a way to break the ice. And on top of that, I'm drawn to creating my own thing in that way, because I like to express myself in that way. And also, I wasn't seeing, designs I wanted to buy.
Yes,
really.
I 100% am on that shit too.
It's like I want something, and this has been something I've hemmed and hawed about the Pokemon company for a long time. Is like their merch is just kind of meh when it could be insane. And I think in the past couple of years, they have stepped up their game in some ways, but I think the fan community around, creating Pokemon merchandise definitely has them beat in a lot of areas. I'm kind of rambling right now, but all that to say,
you're good.
I I've made I'm happy with the designs I've made for playmats. I'm not, I, I'm not trying to like, if they're not for you, they're not for you. I don't care. They're more for me than for anyone else. Just so happens that some people like them. Um, so if you haven't seen them, check them out on my Etsy shop. You can go to morsemakes.com to find the link there. But really, yeah, I just wanted to express myself to people when I show up to play, and then that just evolved into the videos as well. When I was kind of starting out with the videos, the only people besides Tricky Jim making GLC content that I knew of was like Baisch was doing it before I was. It was just a very unexplored market. Not even market, just the community was so young.
Yes.
And it's a newer format in the past couple of years, and I started making videos around the time, a couple months into when we started doing the badge system, right, at Full Grip Games, because up until that point, up until the badge system, I really liked GLC, but I'm really a competitive person, and so it was more of a side thing because it was a more casual format, and I felt like I was more competing in standard weekly. So I was going to standard every week, GLC every once in a while. And then when the badge system came out, and I don't have the funds to go to like try hard regionals all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is legit. Like this is the way to like compete for a season, not a season of championship points, but a season of badges. And so I was like, I like fully switched over at that point. I was like, I'm in, like, this is really fun. And also like, I just want to grind, like it's so satisfying to get a badge. It's also just, it's such a fun and competitive system. Like not only is it competitive, like it's just so fun.
Yeah.
The way that it's set up. GLC just makes it so easy to have it set up this way where you can play, you have to play all the different types, your deck is different all the time. It's not something you can do in standard, it's not like you get your Dragapult EX badge and then you have to play Golden Go the next week.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense. So GLC is just like perfect for that kind of format, and something that I think, I didn't know I was missing in like the terms of like a local Pokemon competitive scene. I think it's like for something a local can do, like for a year-long system, like this is like kind of like the peak, in my opinion. The badge system, the badge grind. So it's so fun, and I've gotten way off from your original question. That's it.
Bro, I was just gonna let it happen, man.
To bring it back to that, so I got super into the badge race. And I was like, we were just having so much fun as a community, like competing against each other. And I was just like, man, like, I want to remember this. Like, I want to like show people like what it's like, and like the experience we're having. And like before the badge system, like we were all friends and stuff, but like it really brought everybody closer together too.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of like fighting for the same goal, and it also gives you incentive to come back every week, like consistently. As opposed to it's like, yeah, I guess I can make it out to GLC this week. It's like, no, I have to be there, because if I'm not there, then Alex is going to win another badge. Like,
exactly. You let him do that. Last season, you left for 2 weeks and you said, all right, guys, catch up.
Don't remind me, all right? Don't remind me. And then this season has just gotten out of hand, so I don't know what's going on. But anyways, I just wanted people to kind of see what we were doing, because I thought it was just so fun, and I thought I could, like do something different. Like I started off doing like the vlog style content for the Full Grip leagues, and that was really fun. And I think like showing off the different people in our community, because I don't care as much about being the face, like I like to give and like to showcase, and like with the playmats and the vlog style videos, and even in the new kind of format of videos I've started doing recently, I still want to include other voices. For a while, I was doing just the finals match, and really that came out of a place of just like more ease of content creation than anything else. Like the vlogs took a lot of work, and I'm like self-conscious too. Like when I go to League, I'm like, all right, like who wants to talk into the little microphone this time? And I was like, maybe they're sick of me. Maybe they don't want, they're tired of me asking the same questions and stuff. So I was like, I need to get out of their faces for a little bit. And people liked the finals matches too. And I enjoyed, the competitive side of that and showing off the different decks and stuff. Yeah. So anyways, I have a lot to say, obviously.
Yeah. This is good. Because some of this we're going to circle, to and back to and stuff like that. But to kind of bring us back, kind of like you say, you don't want to be a part of the spotlight, but you are, at this point, a pillar of the community. And something that we all want to know sometimes is like, what gave you that original spark to create content for your favorite TCG format? And then a follow-up question to that would be, has being at the birthplace of GLC have any influence on your approach or even motivation to stay creating?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the motivation, the spark kind of is what I was saying. Like we were just having such a good time as a community that I just really wanted it to exist in some place that we could kind of remember it. Like it felt like such a special moment for the format and for like our local league. When the badge system was created and Andrew was playing every single week with us, and it was just like wild to me, the weekly experience we were having. And I was like, people gotta see this because Andrew's not producing it. It's like,
yeah, he's a part of it.
Yeah. And also being inspired by, by Baisch making GLC content and, Weeder's dedication to, keeping up with the format, keeping discussion going, making it accessible through Cardboard Warriors. It's like, and like tracking, win and losses and things like that, badges for the online leagues. And I was like, man, I want that to exist for Full Grip, and it just doesn't. And there's not an easy way for me to kind of just like have that exist online unless I am the one that creates it. So really that was the big incentive. Just like, I want to remember it. Cause like, and then we haven't talked much about like my website tracking our data. But if you don't know, I also track all of our league data, players win-loss rates, types win-loss rates, and our badge board. And that came from a competitive place for myself. It's like, I feel like I was doing pretty good every week. I want to know how good I'm doing at the end of the season. I want to actually be able to look back and say like, here is how good I did this year. And like, either improve on it the next year or like, compete with, Alex head to head or whoever else is, I want people to be motivated by how they're performing and see their growth over time. Cause, to be honest, like from the beginning of the first season to now, I could easily say like, all of our local players have like doubled in skill. Like everyone is so much better now than when like we first started, in deck building, in sequencing and playing. So it's been really cool to see everyone's growth and everyone's like commitment to it. And like people who didn't do as well in the first season are like killing it this season. So like shout out Ben Peacock, shout out Fran, like they're like the early front runners of season 2. And, it's just really exciting to push each other. And so that's what made me want to just like create content. I'm like, if it doesn't exist right now, like you got to be the one to do it. Right. So that was and it's another creative outlet. And as a creative person, I wanted something just to fill my time. Because when I'm not at Pokemon on Thursday nights, that's my socializing. I need to fill my time,
I'm relating to so much of this right now, just like everything you're saying. Just it feels like, I mean, I love watching the drama unfold at Full Grip Games. Like now we've got Tricky Jim streams, we got your content, like getting to see my favorite players. Like you mentioned Fran. I love watching Fran step up and play some games now. Like that, when she played Skeledirge, I think she even had like an Ancient Dragon deck. Like it's so cool to see like where they're at. And, like I find myself having favorites. I find myself rooting for people. It's just so awesome. And all of that I'm going to kind of like say is your fault, man. Like it's your fault that I enjoy all the Full Grip Games drama. Because again, Tricky Jim, I love Tricky Jim. I love Andrew. Everything he does is great. But it was a lot about him and he was my hero, right? And then now it's like, oh, there's so many other cool heroes about this place, and I get to see them and see them play and see their cool decks, and you just keep it all there for us to check out. Like if you haven't seen Ben's website, go check it out. Like we have it on our pod all the time, talking about all the different things. It's just so awesome. So Ben, as a fan, it is just so great to hear you talk about these things and to get to enjoy them with. It feels like I'm enjoying it with you all. You know, you talked about Full Grip Games vibes. I get to enjoy it with you, and that's so what's awesome about it.
That's really kind. Yeah, thank you. And I didn't, expect it to like
Blow up.
Blow up. And it's still relatively small. I mean, but GLC is so niche. Like, it's so niche. I'm not going to make a career out of GLC content. There's just not enough people. But yeah, it's just crazy to see. The support I've gotten on the content I've made, and people asking weekly, like, oh, who won Full Grip this week? And, like, I just think everyone at Full Grip is such a great person. And we have a lot of great deck builders, a lot of great creativity going on. And yeah, it just would be such a shame if we didn't have access to any of that. Like, like if I wasn't doing the website, like, all these deck lists or whatever, like, would be lost to time. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, some people post them on the Discord, but a lot of them aren't active on the Discord. So yeah, it's just, I think it's as a GLC fan, I'm glad to be able to have this record, and we can look back in a couple years from now and see like what the hell were we playing and fighting it. No. Why did we combo this card together? I don't know. Like,
yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, we love using it. We use it, all the time. And I'm sure that, your local group and the group at Full Grip Games uses it to kind of keep track of like who's doing what and stuff. Especially, you have your badge board on the wall over there, but if you're not there, you can just look it up anytime. morsemakes.com, easy peasy. It's easy to get there. And, Jeff was talking about having favorites and stuff like that and whatnot. And I was able to go, to Full Grip and visit there not too long ago, I think last September or something like that. And it was kind of cool. Nobody knew me, but I was just there and kind of got to play with all the people that I see play all the time. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be a tough game, just thinking of like who I was playing against. And it was super fun. I enjoyed it.
That's cool. It was cool to meet you there. And yeah, I'm excited to see how many new faces we see, at these new set release tournaments that we can finally host. Yeah, I'm super excited for the community to just get bigger and bigger. And, we already have over 100 entrants for this upcoming 1K. And yeah, so it's going to be huge. I don't think they ever reached those numbers when they were doing them originally. So I was looking back at early tournaments, and I'm not sure which tournament was, if it was like the first or the last one they did, but one of them had like 40 players, which was a ton at the time. And just to think like we're more than doubling that now that we're back, it's, GLC is growing a lot, and as it should. It's, it's just such a fun format.
Oh yeah, I love it. And like, to kind of get back on to, the content that you make. So you had to recently pivot your content again, from the finals matches that you talked about earlier to like this more interview style format that you've been doing with some in-depth deck profiles. And with this style of content, you have built up a natural well of knowledge, right? So you doing all this different content, whether it be the old content, the now content, But what is your view of the GLC format in your area, and how do you think it fits in the overall meta of the GLC format as a whole?
It's so hard to gauge the GLC meta because it's so local.
Yes.
In my opinion, because I'm experiencing a purely in-person, local. I don't know if any of our players compete in any of the online tournaments. As far as I know, they don't. If Alex and Hunter aren't doing it, then no one is. like.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I just don't know. But I'll look at I'll get I know the vibe of our locals, and I feel like I can predict who's going to play what pretty well often, just because I know everyone so well. And then they're trying to counterpick me or whatever. And so
Yeah.
extremely local competition. And then looking on like discussions on both the Tricky Gym Discord or the Cardboard Warriors Discord, to me, people are in a completely different world.
Yes.
compared
I would agree
to
with
what's
that.
going on at Full Grip. So it's hard to say like what is the meta, because outside of like this kind of common agreement that like Turbo Colorless is probably the best deck, I think from there, like what I think is the best decks at Full Grip, a lot of the Cardboard Warriors Discord is gonna disagree.
Yeah.
And I think especially early GLC at Full Grip, probably everywhere, heavily influenced by Andrew, Tricky Gym, and the decks he would build and what he would show off in his tabletop streams and things like that, or on gymleaderchallenge.com. That's where I started. It's probably where a lot of people started. And I still think a lot of, not all of his decks or his thinking I agree with, but a lot of his decks that he built originally are still some of the top decks, which is pretty impressive. And if they're not like the best type in the format, the archetypes that he built years ago are still some of the dominant archetypes, or some of the most popular archetypes. Like Hydro Pump Whales. My first deck I built for GLC was a Hydro Pump deck because Jesse Parker played it on Andrew's stream a couple times, and it just looked like so fun, and Blastoise was my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that, Hydro Pump, and not that no one would have come up with Hydro Pump.
Yeah.
Anyone could come up with Hydro Pump. I think, yeah, I think a lot of talk on the Discord nowadays is people think Dragon is one of the top decks, and that's something I would really disagree with. And maybe that's a result of how it's done at Full Grip. And we do have a handful of Dragon badges, but Dragon, it still is not really a type I'm that scared of.
Yeah.
Scared of facing. And I think the discussion I see sometimes makes it feel like it's so overwhelming and so powerful, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of other decks are still much better than it. I don't think Raging Bolt, while it's good, I don't think it really like pushes it to the top, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like its damage output is pretty mediocre at best. It can snipe, which is a great, tool it has, but an early snipe from a Raging Bolt shouldn't mean you lose the game. There's a lot of ways to come back against Dragon. They're not the most consistent deck long term. And if you play your cards right, or put yourself in a certain position, depending on what deck you're playing, there's a lot of routes to come back against Dragon. Because of there's a little bit of lack in consistency. So I'm big on just consistency throughout the course of the game. Even if it means a weaker start. You think of something like Psychic, which is more often than not slower to get off the ground than something like a big basic deck like Dragon. But as the game goes on, you just have such high consistency, and high disruption power, and damage output is pretty good, and all these different ways to both draw and energy accelerate. To me, those types of decks that have more support tools to carry you through the game are what I consider top decks, and to me, Dragon is still just a little bit below that.
Yeah, I mean, most things that you said, I would agree with. Like most of the meta is going to be at an extremely local meta, and then you kind of got this overarching thing, which I'm always excited to kind of see. I like ICs or regionals, and just kind of see everybody's local meta come together and kind of see a top deck come out of that. It's always kind of super curious and fun to see. Like at this last EUIC, Metal got second and Colorless won out, obviously, but Metal being in the finals is kind of whack at a big 109 player IC tournament. It was still kind of funny to kind of go over. But yeah, I would agree. Like
those results. Yeah, it was a crazy top 8. It was
yeah,
cool.
I was like, what is happening?
Something I've always said for GLC, and this is what I say to everyone I'm testing with for the full group 1K that's coming up, is that people are just going to play the type they want to play.
Yes.
There is, like, we all know Colorless is probably the best deck, and then we'll talk about, like, okay, but like how many, like, we'll probably see like a lot of Psychics, and like we're not going to see many of like Fire and Fighting, and I'm like, pause. 50% of the room thinks Fighting is the most fun deck, so we're going to see a bunch of Fighting.
Yes, yeah.
Like, it might not be the best deck, but like, and we're going to see every type represented, like, without a doubt in my mind. We're going to see every type represented. Fairy, I'm hoping for one. There probably will be one. Zero wouldn't surprise me, but we just want to talk about Fairy. But
hopefully that Fairy person isn't flying into and by they're local.
Our one Fairy player moved, so they're gone. So I don't think they're coming for the 1K, but yeah, you look on our website, Fairy has been played 2 times this season, and that was the same person, and they just moved. So as far as the full group locals are we won't be playing Fairy, but yeah, every type will be represented, and that's why it's like really hard to nail down the meta, because it's at its core, what draws people into GLC is that there is so much room for creativity, and there's and not only is there room for creativity, you're more rewarded than standard for creativity. Like, you can still do well with a fire deck, or with a weird grass archetype, and something that not a lot of people are familiar with, because in the way the GLC games go, it can go any way, and some types will be more consistent and win more consistently, of course, but I do think that any type could take it home, of course, if they run well and have some luck on their side, and maybe Fire needs a lot more luck than Colorless does to take it, but it could take it, and that's something you always have to think about. And yeah, so it's just really, really difficult to nail down. Because it's an unserious, I don't want to say it's unserious, because I take it really seriously. So from someone who takes it really seriously, I'm saying it's unserious as a format.
Well, some of us have developed entire personalities around Jim with a challenge. All right, Ben, be careful what you say.
I know. I'm trying not to offend anybody. That's why I'm saying, like, hey, I'm with you there. I'm taking it really seriously. I think it's great to compete in, and all the power to the people that are going to play, their niche deck that, people are saying, that's bad. You need to add these Pokemon. You need to cut that Pokemon. And they're like, that's my favorite Pokemon. So it's like the exciting part of GLC is not that everyone's playing the best deck or everyone is I don't know. But the exciting part is that everyone's going to play a different deck every week, and everyone's going to come to the table with something new, and try to win with something different or unique, or try to counter a different type. So yeah, it's impossible, and it's so local. Like I said, it's just impossible to really nail down, and everyone has different opinions.
Yeah, if it's fun and has a chance, somebody's playing it.
Yeah.
I don't even think it needs to have a chance, dude. I'm like over here like, man, do I have enough money to fly to Ohio to play my Meganium deck? Like, can I play 20 evolutions without their stage ones in the deck and still do well? And I'm like, you know what? It might be worth it. Like, who knows? But
I wouldn't. I'll tell you now, it's not worth it.
Man, with those flight costs that I had been looking up flights to Akron or like around there, those flight costs from where I'm at, I'm like, that's like a whole mortgage right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Flights are crazy, and I'm glad I live close enough, of course, to be here now, because I haven't played in any of the big in the big release weekends full group tournaments, because it all happened right before I moved here. The last one that they hosted, I had moved here like 3 weeks before it happened, but I had to fly back home that weekend for my dad's 50th birthday. So,
oh, wow.
And then that was the last one they had. And I'm like, no, like just got here. I just got here. So I'm like so excited that they're finally back. Man. And yeah, I've been thinking about it a ton, and I just hoping not to go 0-3 drop.
Hey man, just have fun with it, bro. Have fun with it. But speaking of the 1Ks and stuff coming up, March 30th, by the way, right?
Yep.
So March 30th, you've got like 20 days. You got.
Uh-oh.
I know. Uh-oh. Am I back? What was the last thing you heard?
Speaking of 20 days.
Sexy deep voice. We got 20 days to make it there. All right. Those that are listening. But Ben, how are you preparing to battle against other GLC players that think they're bringing the winning spice?
Good question. It is something I've thought about a lot. And especially it being at like our home store, a lot of us at Full Grip are like, okay, it's got to be one of us, like we got to defend our home turf, and show that we're the best,
Of course.
So we're all very invested in what's going to happen here. And we discuss it weekly, and it's been cool to like kind of like talk with all the other players about like, okay, like what are we vibing with, or what are we expecting to see. And really the one sentence that gets repeated every time is like just make sure you can counter colorless. Like that's the one thing on everyone's mind. And the other thing is that none of them are saying I'm the one playing colorless. Everyone's saying I'm kind of counter colorless. So it's like, so how many colorless are we actually going to see? Maybe we're not going to see that many, because everyone's going to be like, I'm just going to beat colorless. So I'm really interested to see what people bring, and how many people feel confident that they're going to beat colorless enough to play the type that they end up choosing. So that's something I talk about a lot. And, I have thought a lot about, and I look a lot, on the online discussions on Cardboard Warriors, and we're going to get a lot of outside, the full group players are going to be a minority of the number of people playing.
Yeah.
So I can't just depend on knowing that what JD is going to play and what Alex is going to play, and because odds are I'm not going to play against any of them. So I need to kind of get my mind around what the vast majority of the rest of the world is playing, and the results at EUIC are giving me an indication that we might see a good amount of spread decks. Fighting. Oh, thumbs up. We might see a good amount of spread decks from fighting and lightning. Metal has a chance to do well because I think it's pretty good into those spread decks. So I think that's kind of why it ended up doing well at EUIC.
Yeah.
It's metal's like just a great wall against these lower damage output decks. So it was kind of like a counter to the counter of the metal.
Yeah.
So we might see some metal do well. And I'm just curious to know, like, how many rounds am I going to play against spread? That's kind of how many rounds am I going to play against colorless, and how many rounds am I going to play against spread? That's my 2 questions.
5.
Yeah.
The answer's 5.
The answer is 5.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to make sure that whatever deck I play, I feel good about those 2 matchups, and then anything else, you'll probably be able to figure it out.
How are Journey Together cards coming into your mind? I mean, basically we have the release, I think maybe the weekend before, and then all of a sudden now it's, hey, play them this weekend. I guess actually it's that weekend, right? So, thinking about these Hobbs cards, and you're thinking about Whale Lord, like, are you testing with those cards to get ready for this?
I'm definitely testing with them. And they are really good. I do think, as far as like a boost for the type goes, the Hops cards are a boost for colorless. It definitely takes out some of the weaker attackers and replaces them with maybe some easier to power up and stronger attackers. So it gives it a little boost there, but overall the game plan and I think what you'll be able to accomplish is pretty similar to what it already is. So a small boost there. The Whale Lord is definitely a bigger boost for water than Hops is for colorless, because 240 is a huge jump from 200. Like a massive difference between those 40 HP in terms of like how many threats can like KO you. So that is definitely something I'm thinking about, and I do think water will probably be one of the more popular types because people are excited about this Whale Lord. And water is my favorite type, so it's definitely a deck I'm considering. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even going, and I'm sitting over here like, man, I like just playing out the meta in my brain is already just like crazy because I'm having the same thoughts you are. Like, colorless is the best deck. How do you counter this Whale Lord? Obviously, I don't want to play one of the best decks. I want to play something that's going to counter those. So how do you do it? And I'm just like, so I'm going to be sad I get to miss out on that. I'm going to live through you, Ben. I need you to come back on after we have the full group games 1 game. Just give us a whole rundown of all of this. So this is us making a date for the future.
I'd love that. That'd be super fun. So yeah, that would be great. I'm super excited to see how it pans out. But yeah, the Whale Lord is going to be a menace for sure. Water, assuming it's a hydro pump build, the same weaknesses still exist for water. In terms of bench limitation or ability lock, those 2 things can still be enough to win you the game against a hydro pump deck. And unfortunately, just increasing Whale Lord's HP and damage doesn't solve that problem. So even if you do have to end up swinging twice into a Whale Lord, if you can put water at a disadvantaged state, like in those 2 ways that I mentioned, swinging twice into it might not be the end of the world. So that's something I've thought about too. It's like, and if that is the case, then it's like, okay, then maybe I want to go heavier into making this Whale Lord survive even longer and add more healing cards into a hydro pump deck that weren't there before. Things like that. So, I have 3 different water decks built right now that I'm testing.
Oh man, that's crazy.
And they're all pretty similar, aren't they?
Actually, they're all very different.
Very different.
In the back of my head, I'm like, he's got Palpitoad because he's expecting an extra energy attachment is going to be needed because those Turbo Colorless decks really struggle to get that extra attachment. You can get that Palpitoad going. That kind of feels like a win there. So I think this is just me envisioning what you got, Ben. I'm not going to spoil it anymore in case I was right on that guess, but we'll move on from there.
You might be right. And he might be in more than one of those. So, maybe it's Seismitoad could be a strong contender for sure.
So kind of to reiterate like how big this tournament is, there's over 100 players, and we have all these different local metas that are kind of coming into coming to this tournament and, you know, clashing together. What kind of advice would you give to a player who's trying to decide on what deck to play? So you have like different types of counters, you have the best deck, you have mid-range or like rogue decks, or like decks that are more well-rounded like you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Well, my first question for them would be, what's your goal? Is your goal to win the tournament, or is your goal to play your favorite Pokemon? You know, so I think there will be a lot of people with different goals in mind coming into this tournament, especially for GLC. I also expect a large portion of the players at this tournament to actually not really be mainly GLC players, because a lot of people are coming for the standard tournament the day before. So that's something I'm considering when thinking about what the meta will be. Like at the EUIC kind of GLC event, you know, I think a lot of those people are electing to spend that time at an international championship to play GLC. They must really like GLC.
Yeah.
As compared to like maybe at this smaller full group event, like that's the only event going on for that day is GLC on Sunday. So
Yeah.
a lot of these players that are making the trip, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if like 25% of them, it's their first time ever playing GLC. And if that's the case, you know, for them, yeah, those players probably aren't watching this, but, but, you know, if you are, you know, I would say you should watch this, take some notes, and maybe get a couple practice games in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, kind of picking, you know, based on just vibes, to be honest. If you like the high power level and the quick pace of the colorless deck, or an aggro deck, you know, like Dragon or colorless could be your way to go. And yeah, it's like I'm so lost in the sauce right now.
Yeah.
Thinking about this tournament that I truly do think anything can win.
Yeah.
And
I mean, these tournaments are like what, 7 to 9, maybe plus rounds.
I think it'll be at least 7 rounds with over 100 players. Yeah, 7 to 8 rounds will be what we have, and then a top 8. So the main piece of advice I think is pick the deck that you're just like, you know, the lines, like, but especially when a lot of the players are going to probably be newer. If you're playing a deck that you know the lines better than your opponent knows their own lines, then I think GLC is a very skill intensive format, and that you can win a lot of those games because of just how comfortable you are with your type. So if you're a person who has not played any games with Turbo Colorless the week leading up to the event, and you think you just know it because you've seen maybe people play it online or you've talked about it a lot, I can tell you now from experience, like, you don't know it fully. Like,
Yeah.
like I play colorless here and there, so I'm no expert. And and I consider myself a decent GLC player, especially someone who's watched and like talked a lot about GLC, obviously. And I am still making misplays left and right, you know, and this happens. I think colorless is honestly one of the more difficult types to play. When I pick it up, there's so many decisions you have to make, especially when your board is set up. Some people might think once your board's set up, it's just like smooth sailing. That's when it gets like the most difficult because you have so many options. It's like, okay, do I play the supporter that's in my hand now, or do I squove it and like go for this other supporter? And like, what's the risk reward on that? And like, what do I have to? How many energies do I need to attach this turn? Like, do I need to make sure I have a second attachment down this turn because I'm expecting like, this is the optimal turn for my opponent to search out Hex Maniac with with Gallade. It's like, if that's the case, then I need to do a lot more than just attaching this one energy this turn. I have to find like Raihan now while I can. I don't want to get stuck with this hand because they played Hex Maniac and I wasn't ready. So, I would say for someone who isn't practicing colorless a lot, I would say stay away from it. To be honest, play something you're really comfortable with, and I think you can easily take games off of people who just think they can pick up colorless and do well at this tournament.
Yeah. Would you say that there's like very few decks that you can just pick up? I know that Hydro Pump is like one of the easier, more standard decks to play, but at the same time, it too also has lots of decisions like, hey, what should I pick up off this Shady Dealings Drizzile? What should I pick off this? All these different decisions that you can make. It seems like sometimes the more well-rounded and more decisions that you have to make with that deck, although albeit it might be easy to pilot, it can still land you, a wrong turn here and there, and thus kind of losing you the game.
Yeah. I agree with that. I actually do think water is kind of along the same lines of colorless. I would say it's actually one of the more difficult types to play. It's one of the it's one of the easier types to get into.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a very high ceiling for mastery. Because like you said, the Shady Dealings choices, your diverse attacking lineup. Kyogre actually makes the deck really complicated, I think. Not like extremely complicated, but more complicated than it would be without it, because it has extremely high risk reward value. Like the risk on going in with a Kyogre, and if your opponent can respond, with a well-timed like disruption and knockout because you used Kyogre the previous turn, like your game's over. So like you really have to debate like whether or not going in with Kyogre early when you don't have extra energy on a different attacker is the right choice to make. And so like sometimes Kyogre can win you the game there, and sometimes Kyogre can lose you the game there. So so I think it's definitely a complex type to master. But I also feel that way about a lot of the GLC types, and I think that's just the nature of the format.
Yeah.
Because in standard, you have, it's your deck, your 60 cards versus your opponent's 60 cards. Same in GLC, but it's 60 versus 60. But in standard, with all the duplicates, it could come down to like 30 versus 30, or even like 20 versus 20. Like you have less than half the cards to consider, in a game of standard that you do in GLC. So just the sheer amount of options that both you and your opponent have at their disposal is what makes it such a skill-intensive format, because the player with that knowledge and with considering all those options and all those lines, will have, some kind of advantage over your opponent who may not know the matchup as well. And so maybe having, there's a very high value in bringing a deck that will have some surprise in it, because it just gives you an edge in what your opponent is expecting and the lines you can take. There's definitely games I've lost because, I'm expecting a cookie cutter list, and they hit me with something that I played around all of the other options. I'm like, okay, I put myself in a great position to win because I played around all these options I expected you to have. But because they added the enhanced hammer, or because they, have this other Pokemon that I like didn't even know they would play, and I have to pick it up and read it for the first time. For example, probably a year ago, John Patterson was playing a fighting spread deck, right? And he benches a Rhyhorn, and I'm like, what the hell? Could not tell you a single thing any Rhyperior card does. And then, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And he ends up like wiping my board because this thing is a freaking monster, and the reversal energy had also like just came out. So he goes like, he had no energy on it. So I'm like, there's no way he's like attacking this thing, right? So he goes like Rhyhorn reversal energy, evolve into Rhyperior, 120, 60 everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, like I just got freaking smoked because the knowledge of the matchup was just lacking a little bit, that's like one card that I wasn't aware of that it's completely swung the game. So yeah, it's just a crazy format where the card pool is so massive, and people are very creative, and I'm sure a lot of people are holding some sauce for this upcoming 1K, myself included. I'm not going to leak up in here. Hold it. And so, that's going to be where it comes down to it. And, we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I kind of just described 90% of my GLC games. Just like, I only win because no one knows what my cards does. Like, I torch-checked Crisis Punch the other day so hard, I was just like, yeah. And I was like, and that card existed.
Yeah, I'm so scared of the 1K because I know there's going to be people playing some nonsense like that like definitely should not be good.
I'm telling you, man, Bunnelby Crisis Punch is going to be in the winning colorless list. I'm going to say it now. It's going to go bonkers. It's going to be crazy. I could feel it. I feel it.
Honestly, that would be pretty sick. I don't agree with you, but the fact remains that like that's why I'm so scared. It's like I could lose to that,
Yeah.
And
yeah. That's the crazy thing about GLC is there's anything can hop out of anything. No pun intended.
Yeah. So like just know back to what we were saying, just like know your lines, know the strengths and weaknesses of your own deck, know the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent's type that they present to you. A lot of people are going to be playing standard lists we've all seen because a lot of them are newer players who play standard mostly. They're going to be playing top performing lists from online tournaments or from full group games. They're going to take color, like the most recent colorless winning list because they just asked their buddy who plays GLC, like, hey, what's the best type? Colorless? Okay, like send me a list, So yeah, take it if you're coming and you're trying to scheme something up, take advantage of that fact, test against those lists, and also make sure you don't lose to spread.
Yes.
Facts. I'm just
play your bench barriers.
Play your bench barriers.
Play that barrier.
But I'm just I always picture a Run Jamie Runs tier list whenever this comes down. And those of you who are members of the Tricky Gym Discord probably know this. Whenever someone's like, what's the best type? Like the judge, Run Jamie Run, love Jamie so much. He pops in, he's like, oh, here it is. And it's just S tier, the best pilots. And it's just like A tier, the next best pilots. And then at the end, it's like F tier, me. So just be the best pilot. Like, it doesn't matter what type you play as long as you know all the information that there is for GLC. You're typing it out like Ben was saying. Again, the best players are going to do well regardless of what's in their hands.
Yeah, that's so true in GLC, and and that's continued to be the truth at full group games, and that's why I love tracking everybody's standings, because players' win rates, despite switching decks all the time, everyone is pretty consistent in their play plans for what the amount of wins and losses they're getting over the course of the season. I mean, I haven't gotten a lot of firsts, but let me toot my own horn a little bit. I have more top fours than anyone except Alex Carpenter. So like I'm up there all the time, but I just can't close it out. So that's my own fault. But Alex is the perfect example, and Hunter too. They just grind it out, and Craig and JD. All these players that I'm naming have like just really high win rates across the season, despite not being able to play half the types anymore. They're playing what we would consider the weaker types, or the types that they obviously didn't choose to play with before. Still performing well week to week. So yeah. If you haven't played GLC and you think it's the baby mode of Pokemon, you're gonna get slapped when you show up. For sure.
So aside from competition, what are some what's your favorite top or like deck that you always come back to, like no matter what?
I water is that for me, and I just water and psychic, like. Part of that's because I like winning too, and I think those types are really good and they win a lot. But the other part of that is I've just always loved water Pokemon. I've played every generation of Pokemon since they've come out, and 90% of the time I pick water.
Yeah.
When a few times where I've picked a different type just because, I didn't maybe like the vibe of
Yeah.
the water starter. Yeah, I've always been water till I die. Blastoise is like always been my favorite Pokemon. Um, my first game on my Game Boy was Silver version, and I pretty much had Feraligatr, and I had a Pidgeot, and I had a Togepi with an Everstone on it because I had no idea what that did.
Yeah.
And my
Same here, bro.
Togepi was level like 55 and is in the Hall of Fame when I was like so like, but Feraligatr was my guy, and yeah, so GLC, just no brainer. Like, I'm gonna play the water guys. It is a little bit of a bummer that Blastoise kind of, isn't played anymore.
I was so upset whenever that Max Caliber came out. I was so upset because that was the only reason why I started playing water was Blastoise.
Right, and I was right there with you until the full art came out of Baxcalibur, and the only thing that I like more than Blastoise is the Komiya artworks. So I'm going for a master set of all the Komiya artworks.
Yeah.
I've almost all of them already, and he's just my favorite TCG artist. So it was very short time that I was upset when I realized that Blastoise would. Yeah, I immediately bought the Komiya full arts, and I'm like, this is a great upgrade. So, yeah, so definitely water, and I really gravitate towards decks where I feel like I just have a lot of control over how the game goes, whether it's winning or losing. I feel like when I play water and psychic, I just feel like it's kind of up to me to win. It's it's not up to my opponent really. It's like up to me. I'm going to decide if I'm going to win this game because I'm going to be able to, target down what I want to. I'm going to be able to disrupt you when I want to. I'm going to be able to pick apart your board in the way that's going to help me make a comeback here. And so that's what I'm drawn to. I'm not super into like aggro decks. I don't really vibe with Dragon that hard. It's fine. I don't vibe with Dark that great. I think Dark is really good. And my next YouTube video actually is Dark. I played it last week.
Did you?
And I did. I went 4-1 with it, and it's like a solid type, but I just don't enjoy as much the lack of control you have. And colorless is like similar to that. You have more control because you can see so much more of your deck, on a given turn with your draw. But I just like search abilities. Like give me shady dealings, give me a buddy catch. I think if I played Dragon, I still prefer Dragonite in there because I just like that control it gives me. So yeah, those are the things that I gravitate towards.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, what deck do you play to win if? So this is like a little thing. If badges aren't in the mix, so like if you weren't worried about badges, what do you feel like? I'm gonna bring this to win to your locals, not like a 1K or anything like that.
Yeah. I would pick water still.
Yeah, you're like samesies.
I think it's really fun, and I'm like, water is the one badge I have right now, and with the 1K coming up, I've said I've built 3 water decks. I can't play them to locals because I already have the badge.
Yeah,
I'm like, I want to test these water decks. I mean, I could if I really wanted, but not gonna.
Yeah,
but I really enjoy the creativity and the water decks that we've seen in the last year, because early on it was pretty much just Hydro Pump, but I've become a big believer in special whales. And Josh, I was inspired by your list, when I went on stream I don't know, 6 months ago. And I ended up winning my water badge with special whales, so didn't even get to play those Komiya arts, but I think that deck is legit, and I've continued cooking the list I won with to maybe play that at the 1K. I think it's a really solid pick, even though the new Whale Lord is out. Special Whale Lord, Jumbo Waves. It's not dead. Like that thing and all that is. So you have to be ready for both Whale Lords if you're coming, like.
Oh yeah, for real though.
So yeah, I think that deck is just so fun, and water in general. Yeah, I just enjoy playing it, and I do enjoy. I also I could talk how much about I love the format so much.
Yeah,
I just trying new things too.
Yeah.
So, I didn't play it to League, but I built, a dumb grass list last week that is terrible. But it's fun, and it won a game against a colorless, before League started.
Yeah, you'll beat it right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a double. I started with the double attacking idea, with Dipplin and Jumpluff, and maybe I cooked too hard, but I was like, Dipplin, you're cut because you're not getting that combo off most games. Like it's too steep. Grass does not have enough tools for you to like, maybe you can use Dipplin once. But you're not ever doing it again. Like you're never going to have the cards in hand to do that. So I don't believe in Grass's consistency, but I do believe in it as a fun deck. And I actually have really enjoyed in the past couple months playing Rillaboom Venusaur. If you watch, one of my recent videos was about Rillaboom Venusaur, and I'm a huge fan of Badoo, man. I think Badoo belongs in every single grass deck, and I think it definitely boosted Grass's power level in a way that I think people are kind of writing off a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, Grass still has some of the same problems, but I was getting to the finals like multiple weeks in a row with that thing, and there a good 2 rounds of each of those weeks were because of Badoo. Like I would have been dead a long time before if Badoo wasn't in the deck. So
Badoo just kind of helps out a lot.
It definitely does, and I just enjoy trying a lot of different things. I'm just passionate about the format. I built every type except fairy. I doubt I ever will build fairy.
Man, I wish they'd bring back fairies so bad. Or at least do some more.
Very less.
That's the most correct response.
I can care less. Man, I love the color pink. I say if they ever reprint fairy again and they have some actual good support and stuff, I'm playing that sucker till no end.
I actually agree with you. Pink is my favorite color, to be honest. And unfortunately, the pink cards are a disgrace. So
yeah, they are.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna bother with it.
Yeah, don't even bother. We're not even gonna mention it again.
Yeah. So if I do believe in the fighting deck, which may be controversial. I mean, probably not controversial to a lot of your audience, because I know a lot of cardboard warriors are huge fighting believer. And I'm like a semi-believer. I think when I play fighting, I really love playing Hitmon Bros. It's really fun. And some of the most fun games I've had are with Hitmon Bros, because it's just so satisfying to pull off the combo.
Yeah.
And, it's just really fun. And having Okie Dokie there to just like be like, okay, you dealt with my spread guys, maybe, but now deal with this guy while I like maybe get the other guys back. So, I think it's fun. Like it's super frustrating to lose, because that's a deck that does lose to itself, which I said that's, I like to be in control. I don't want to lose to myself. I want to be able to be in control. So I don't often play it to League unless I have to. But when I'm meeting up with people, I'm bringing it with me. Like it's one of my I have one of those boxes that holds 6 decks. And in there, whenever I'm coming somewhere, it's like I've got fighting, I've got grass, I've got water, I've got psychic, and then I've got whatever 2 types I'm like maybe gonna play to League.
Yeah.
So that's my lineup.
So funny to hear you say that you're a fighting semi-believer, because so many people that have been like so much into that deck are like, it can't win a 7-round tournament. Like no one ever hears like it's going to win a 7-round tournament. But I would love to see Hitmonbros do well with this full grip 1K. I think that would just be the icing on the cake. I've actually stopped kind of playing Hitmonbros because I don't play good decks. And I think now it's officially a good deck. But
I don't know if it's a good deck, but it's but I as I've said, anything can win. So I wouldn't be surprised for a fighting deck to do well, especially with all the colorless we're expecting. Like it can take games, and it can. You just have to, have the right cards kind of in your first couple hands. It can easily take games. So fighting has that power. It's just not a type that I think I would win a tournament with. And my goal isn't to win a couple games. My goal is to win the tournament. So that's why it's not on the table, because one of those rounds you're gonna lose to yourself.
I think there. I would definitely just want a Ninja Boy into Okie Dokie and just smack someone in turn 2. That'd be my goal for the entire day. It's like, can I just Ninja Boy one time and do a 6-prize Okie Dokie? Let's do it.
All right. I know you're a Ninja Boy lover. All right. So let me tell you, the amount of times I've built a deck that I've like, this is positive for you, but it might end up negative. So I've built a lot of decks where, you go into Cardboard Warriors or whatever, and your list has like 65 cards and you got to cut. I would say there's a good amount of decks I've built where Ninja Boy is in the 65 and it's cut 100% of the time. But now 100% of the time, there's never a deck list where I'm like, Ninja Boy is the best spot here. I wish it was. It's so cool. And I think, yeah, I mean, people might hate on me for this, but like, I care more about winning.
That's fine. I think I'm not gonna like anyone who says that Ninja Boy is like the best card ever. Like, no, you're lying to yourself, and I'm lying to myself too. Like, I had to shove it into Hitmonbros, but I will say every person who's played my list with Ninja Boys has been like, that's pretty cool. I've been really trying. Like you mentioned, 65 cards, Fury Sode, and oh gosh, what's the other card? Rhyme are always like my 65 that I cut immediately. And I'm just like, I just want to play these cards. I got these beautiful full arts, but Rhyme and Fury Sode. So they're just what Ninja Boy is to you, they are to me. So, respect. Ben.
Yeah, I think it's a cool card. And to be honest, like, that's just my play style. Like, Ninja Boy could definitely win you a game or two here and there. Like, because that's why I even consider it, because there's definitely times where it could be the card that wins you the game. And so you got to think about it. And, like I said, for the upcoming 1K, like, have a surprise factor in your deck. People are playing around you, not being able to get back Okie Dokie at this moment.
Yeah.
Ninja Boy, Okie Dokie could win you the game. So it's not off the table. It's just not my play style. I'm more of a, long-term, many round tournament. Like, it's just like, what's going to get the most use? Not that Ninja Boy is bad. So I don't want people to hear me say like, Ninja Boy sucks. If you play, you should feel bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying long-term use in a 7-round tournament. How many rounds do I expect to actually play Ninja Boy? Maybe once, that's what I'm thinking. I haven't done a ton of testing with Ninja Boy. This is just hypothetical, but just to give you an insight into what I look at when I'm building a deck is, majority of rounds, what's going to see the most play, what is actually, Ninja Boy might win me the round that time, but I might need Pokegear more often, So that's just an example. So that's I really value like just going like max consistency, and that's why in the stupid grass deck I built, a lot of people are throwing in both the new Lilligant and the Lurantis, as like, oh, you're gonna boost your damage by 40. To me that's just impractical. It's just like, those are 2 slots that you could get a lot more use of. Odds are you're not going to get both of them set up most games. If you do, that's sick, really powerful. but most games I think it's kind of a fever dream. So I'm gonna use those slots for something that, increase my odds a little bit long term rather than a big burst short term.
So earlier when we were talking about Ninja Boy, replace Ninja Boy with Kofu, and then did you agree with everything you just said?
I do. I've played a couple decks with Kofu in it, and because Alex and Hunter are huge Kofu believers, they throw that card in every dang deck. All right. I would have never given it a second thought, but the fact that they win, you have to think about it. So it's like, if you're winning with a card, it's like, and I was actually going to mention, you mentioned Rhyme. One of my like most vivid memories of a Gym Leader Challenge League night was when it was Alex versus Andrew in the finals. Okay. And Alex is playing Fire and Andrew's playing a better deck. I think he was playing Dragon at the time or Grass or something. And it was like Alex needed, literally Rhyme was the only card that would have won him the game there, and he had it. And it was like we all lost our time. And so I would have never considered Rhyme for any deck, but the fact that I witnessed that moment, it's like, dang, like I need to. Rhyme is like maybe a card I would play. Like, so that's also such a fun part of GLC. Like, I could be easily proven wrong about Ninja Boy being top tier in fighting because it like freaking takes the cup, and then I'd have to eat my words and be like, dang, now I actually have to like go play it for myself. And like the creativity and the dedication and the commitment to those types of fun cards are what make this format so good. And I actually don't consider myself that good of a deck builder. I would say I'm a much better player than deck builder. And that's where my passion lies. I don't, a lot of people like to sit and just like cook and brew new things. And, I like to play. So I don't think I'm that great of a deck builder. So don't listen to me when I'm, telling you shouldn't or should play this, make your own decisions,
Yeah.
Because I have a microphone in front of me right now. Doesn't mean that I know what's best for your deck. So I don't want to get a bunch of backlash for having these strong opinions that,
You're allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have
Well, you're bro.
I feel like we need to give you permission. We love your opinions. Everyone loves your opinions. Trust me.
Obviously, I have so many, man. You got me yapping. But yeah, I don't even know what the original question was. I got off.
Oh, we were just talking about
how Ninja Boy is the best card, and you clearly said yes. So let's move on to the next question.
I will say it can be. I will say it has it. Like I said, it has its uses, and it's not a zero value card.
Thank you. It really warms my heart to hear that. Like I've never been this happy about hearing someone talk about Ninja Boy before. Thank you, man.
Yeah, you're really helping them out here. Really boosting that hope. But being in Akron, do you actively see the GLC community growing there, or do you see more like on social media, like more people becoming involved in the format? And then kind of like a follow-up to that would be, what in your opinion would help the format grow even more?
Those are great questions. I will say, outside of actually the past month, I would say our community has been pretty set in stone. Like, it has not grown to huge numbers, which is fine. Not like I'm like shocked by that.
Yeah.
Like I said, GLC is extremely niche. Majority of people who play Pokemon still just play standard. And I think, to be honest, I think it's actually kind of a hard format to get into for new players. And so I'm hoping, I love the podcast, and I love, that's another reason or motivation to make the content I make as well. It's just like I want to hopefully make it more accessible, give people like an idea of what's going on here. But when new people come, I not always the best at it, but I try, to like chat with new players and ask them like, oh, like, like, how'd you hear about it? Like, so glad you're here. And on Pokemon Day, a couple weeks ago, we had our biggest GLC night yet, with like 34 players, which was like huge. And, a lot of those people were there probably for Pokemon Day festivities, which is great. That's fine. I was like, okay, yeah, next week we're going to go back down to our regular numbers of like 14 to 20 players. And to my surprise, the week after Pokemon Day, we had 24 players, which was, a big, like for a normal GLC week. And there was a number of players whose first time was on Pokemon Day who came back, so I'm like hoping they stick around. So to me, I think the most, I can't speak for the online community because, I don't take part in a lot of the online events. And even like online discussion, I'm not like a huge presence in online discussion either. I love to like lurk and see, and you guys are doing great work. And every time, new players pop in, I think that the best thing that we have going for us is the people in it, because we're so passionate and we care so much, and we also, while taking it seriously, we I think a majority of GLC players prioritize, the fun factor and the creativity and showcasing that more than anything else. Like, it's not a sweaty environment like online, in discussion, in person. We're trying hard, but it's not like at the expense of, having a good time. Yeah. So, and that's definitely different than like standard locals, like league challenges, league cubs. Like, if I'm not winning, I'm not having a good time at those days, at those events. But in GLC, if I'm not winning, I'm still having a great time. Because it might be a deck like I'm experimenting with, and I'm testing it out, and also like you learn so much just from like, I just want to play it. Like, I just care so much about like, I'm not gonna drop because that's my one day during the week that I get to play it. Like, I got 5 games tonight. I'm gonna make the most of them. So in terms of like community building, it's difficult. I think I see that it's difficult for new players to get into because of just like, it's probably similar to how I feel about like the expanded format. Like, I will never play expanded format because that's just absurd to get into, like the amount of options you have there is just so steep. So, I mean, a lot of new players probably feel similarly when they approach GLC. So I think, continue to be warm and welcoming and communicative and helpful. And I think I only see that online in discussion and in person. Like, everyone is just so generous and so helpful, that, again, I hope that comes across in the videos I make and motivates someone to not like be nervous about like showing up or not doing, showing up and not doing well,
For sure.
Odds are they're not going to do well for a while. A majority of people are not winning the tournament. So, myself included. And, no shame. There's no shame. And I don't think anyone makes anyone feel bad for, we have lots of players who, have not earned a badge in the last 2 years, but still come consistently and still, have that as a goal. And, I admire that so much, and I'm right there with them, trying to earn badges myself. And, I think this like group motivation and like, community and like, just again, like the fun people are having at the bottom tables compared to the bottom tables of a standard event, it's just night and day. So my encouragement to new players is to just like give it a chance, because I think that they'll feel that like immediately if they've played other card games. I think they'll feel the difference in just like, the type of people and like the vibes of the format.
Yeah.
And that's why I stick with it, and that's why I hope my videos reach new people, because I just want the vibes to come through.
Yeah, for sure. Your content really does come out with very welcoming, informative, especially this new round that you've been doing, like kind of doing the in-depth deck profiles and the little interview format. That really is, quite welcoming. Not to say like that the finals commentary was not, but, with those in-depth deck profiles and everything that you've been doing lately, you get like some explanation, like, well, why would I play this instead of like, what are they doing? You can only do so much in a live commentary other than like an in-depth deck profile, or maybe, you get your interview style and, you're asking them questions, and then they'll tell you why it might be different than your reasoning too. So now we've got like two different reasons why you would play XYZ the way you would. So yeah, I would say that your content right now is very welcoming, for both new players and, more advanced players alike.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very kind, and that's my goal with it. I'm really excited that I was kind of forced in this position to make this new format, with Andrew taking over the streaming. But yeah, I wanted to continue showcasing our community, and hopefully provide some type of information. Because when I'm talking about a deck, like I said, I'm not the best deck builder. Before I send it out, I'm like, in my mind, like, okay, anyone who's watching DLC content has already seen this deck, like they know what Rillaboom Venusaur is. Like, why is this gonna matter to anyone? So I was actually really surprised at how positive the feedback was on this new type of video I've been doing. So I just think that yeah, I just want people to try it. That's all I can. I just want people to try it and make some friends. Like that's what I care about more than I care more about that more than winning, more than cooking up something creative. I really I'm passionate about it because it's where I have community, and I think that's really valuable. And if you like Pokemon and you want a place to feel connected to people, go to GLC League or start one, because I know that that they don't exist in a large portion of Pokemon leagues. So I don't know. Like I think so. Like Jeff, did you start your league?
Yeah, it's been a hassle. I'll say that we started, probably about 2 years ago, because before this season, we started the badge trend like Full Grip Game does. We were just grassroots. We were playing at a brewery. We were trying to find a store. Let us play with you, please. So now we finally got the side deck. Fortunately, has a place for us now every other Wednesday night. So it's just so nice. But, you mentioned, numbers. We're finally up to where I feel like, we're going to get 8 to 10 people every single time we have an event. And I'm like, oh my God, that's mind blowing to me. And so it's just awesome. So, I'll echo what you said. You're very much a go-getter in the same vein that I feel myself. Like, start it. Like, if you don't have one, start it, build it. It's going to take some time. But, I feel like I owed it a little bit to build our community and get it where it is. And I just really love where it's at.
Yeah, I just feel super lucky that I didn't have to do that because obviously Full Grip Games is where it all started. So I didn't have to be the one to make that happen. Of course, if I lived somewhere where it didn't exist, I would 100% be putting a ton of effort into starting one, because I just want to play. And I from what I kind of hear online, it sounds more difficult than I would have expected it to be, to get people interested in. And to be honest, like, you probably have a better answer for like getting new players into the game than I do, because I haven't had to do that, to find people to play with or convince people to play with. And it's honestly a struggle because like when I go back to California, I have friends that I would play Pokemon with, and I'll bring all my GLC decks with me, and that's going to be the only time they play GLC is when I go home, and we've kind of stopped playing because they don't want me to just like whoop them anymore.
Yeah.
At the beginning, like it was new for both of us, and it was exciting, and we got to play a different kind of format instead of Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, and it's like, this is fun. And so, but now where it's gotten to a point where, like it is really skill intensive, and deck building has become like, a lot more honed, and in these few years that GLC has existed, and decks are just a lot stronger and have a lot, better options, and you can dominate a lot harder than you used to be able to. It's discouraging for people to lose all the time. I also hate losing all the time. I'd feel the same. I don't blame them. So I don't blame them for not wanting. I'm like, and I'm not going to go easy. Like that's insulting, like I respect my friend as a card game player, and he knows if I'm like not doing an optimal play, he'd be like, why, what's going on? Like, that's not fun for either of us at that point, for someone maybe you don't know as well, like, yes, like take it easy, play a worse deck, introduce them to the format, make sure they have a good first couple games experience. That's just not the relationship I have with my friend. But I can imagine, like, I feel like it would be really hard to get a big enough group of people to want to come each week to Gym Leader Challenge, which is kind of disappointing in some way because I think this format has so much to offer.
Yeah.
So, like, to answer, like, how does this community continue to grow? Like, we just gotta, keep pushing it and like just continue to show off, our creativity and just tell everyone else how much fun we're having and make them feel left out.
Yeah, just live it out. Live out your the GLC format in and out of the LGS.
That's right. Yeah, just bring extra decks with you. Just get people to try it out, and if it's a struggle, like I am so happy the online community exists for webcam and things like that, because I would be, I would just be so bummed if I lived in a place where I couldn't play. And, I'm sure, it's not been my experience, thankfully. So it just breaks my heart when I hear people talk about how hard it is to get a group of people to play GLC, because it's just, I don't know. It's like, it's genuinely changed my life, like it's not like maybe a little dramatic to say it in that way, but like a lot of what I do now revolves around that. So like I would not be who I am today or be have the same friends I have today if it wasn't for GLC. I wouldn't be talking to you guys, I wouldn't be doing a lot of things. So I'm super thankful for it, and I think, just give it a try.
Yep. I think Jeff and I agree with the sentiment that, like, without GLC, we also wouldn't be here sitting talking to you or even be doing this every week, so it's definitely has changed our lives in different ways as well. So we understand that completely. Well, it is getting late. Jeff, do you have anything to say to our friend Ben here?
Just that, Ben, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. And, when I mentioned earlier about having you back on, I think Josh and I would both be very excited to have you on in the future again. So, we'll probably talk more after this, but it has been absolutely wonderful. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I would love to do we should do like a quarterly full grip update or something. I'd be down.
Oh, quarterly full grip update.
Okay, we can talk after the pod. It's been so great being on, and I thank you guys for having me, and I'm a fan of the podcast. And I'll just like shout out my channel real quick at Mark
go ahead.
Making fun GLC content over there, and check out Tricky Jim's full grip streams. You'll catch me on stream here and there, playing games and having a good time. Baisch showing off, just one of several playmats I've designed at morsemakes.com. Yeah, I think they're cool. I play with them. No shame. I'll play with my own playmats.
I love it. And I'm to shill Morse a little bit more here. Like, obviously, like when I order the water, I bet people are like, why aren't you getting fighting Baisch? But like, I was a squirrel guy myself. You guys can see squirrel hanging out in my background too. So like, I got into Pokemon playing base at the fossil, 20 years after the fact. So that's what got me to JLC, was like, I want to play with my single prizers. So of course, JLC was the natural progression. So having the ability to have like a base set card in front of me while I'm playing Gym Leader Challenge is all I've ever wanted. And this is like top quality too. I love everything about it. The text is great. It feels nice to the hand. Go buy a Morse Makes playmat right now if you haven't. But if you don't have the money, don't do it. But it's great. They're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. I love them. So go get them.
Thank
Yeah, by the way, that was not a paid sponsored ad.
I don't have that kind of budget.
Didn't need to pay me. That's how awesome they are. And they're so reasonably priced.
I try. Yeah, a lot of people love, coordinating like their deck box and their sleeves with the type they're playing and stuff. And this playmat, obviously you can do that with too. I'm a huge no match guy, where my deck sleeves, my grass deck is in yellow sleeves in the red box, you're not going to know what type I'm playing. Like, there's no way I'm revealing that before I even flip a card over.
Oh yeah. But yeah, mine on the other hand will let you know I'm playing water. Will let you know I'm playing Lost Zone. Will let you know what I'm playing before you even see anything.
And see, part of me is a little jealous of that because it looks so good. Looks so good to like coordinate everything, So
I'm jealous in a different way. I'm super colorblind. So like the fact that people coordinate things just like blows my mind. Everything is in like black or orange sleeves, and everything's in a black deck box. I don't even know what I'm going to play.
Nice. Well, at least the playmat is your way into that because at least it has the water symbol on it.
Symbols are my go-to. Symbols are great. Colors are bad.
That's right. Yeah, you could go Japanese sleeve route. There's a lot of cool options. So.
All right. Well, guys, you've been listening to the Unfazed Facts podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Gym Leader Challenge. I'm your co-host, Josh Benson, with Jeff Baisch, and we've had Ben Morse on with us. We hope you